We're a company based in Edinburgh in Scotland. We've been producing oatcakes and oat biscuits for a lot of years, since about 1896 now. And so we've had a long history based in Edinburgh in Scotland. We export to about 40 markets around the world. About 11% of the overall sales are international for the business. Our largest markets are the States, Canada, the Netherlands, China, so some further afield and some a little bit closer to home. There's definitely still opportunities for us in international. We just opened up Spain as a market, but also that's a wee bit closer to home, but further away then we've got the Far East, which is lots of opportunities for us in the Far East as well. For our gluten-free area of the business, we started quite a number of years ago. We opened up a new site in Edinburgh dedicated to gluten-free, and we've been producing there ever since. We had a new production plant put in year before last, which doubled our capacity. So it's about half the business now, just over half the business is gluten-free versus our core original core range. And most of the business, actually over half the business in international, is gluten-free now. And that's primarily driven by our US business is predominantly gluten-free, as well as our success in the Netherlands is also almost entirely gluten-free. We work directly with one of the major retailers there, Albert Heijn, and we've also just opened up Jumbo in the market as well. So we have quite a wide range of gluten-free products in the market. And we work with an agent there. It's one of the few markets we have an agent that is based in market. And that's great because he has the relationships with the buyers. There's no language barriers. It works quite freely and works really well for us, specifically in that market. And it's something that we would like to replicate elsewhere because it's been really successful having that direct relationship. It's not quite that easy. It's not suitable for every market. And we have certain markets that we can't, for legislation purposes, we can't ship gluten-free, Australia and New Zealand being one of them. But yeah, it's definitely a growing side of the business, both at home and overseas. There are many and varied challenges with exporting products, certainly in the food industry. I mean, Brexit being the obvious one gave us lots of complication in terms of more documentation and labelling. And that certainly is quite labour intensive for the team. So that's definitely complicated things since that happened. But there's other areas such as where there are no free trade agreements. So India is definitely a market that we would be interested in developing. But currently the tariffs are simply too high. We just can't make it work without some sort of free trade agreement in place. So we're hoping that that's going to come. We hear good things, but it's been a bit of a time in the making. We're working hard towards our goals to reduce emissions. We use science-based targets, so we're committed to 50% reduction in Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 2030, and to measure and start to reduce Scope 3 emissions, which is also the more challenging one for our industry. We do use 100% renewable electricity, which is really important. Our head of operations works very closely on that and making sure we're doing all that we possibly can. We've just installed solar PV system and our voltage optimization in both sites, which is definitely helping us get that target. But it is challenging, it's certainly challenging, but something we're not shying away from. And in terms of managing relationships, can be quite difficult because obviously you're quite far apart from your customers. It's a lot easier than it used to be, for sure, with the advent of Zoom and Teams. Then it's much easier to build relationships, but there's nothing better than being in the market. So, learning about your customers and building those relationships firsthand, seeing products in the market and your competitive set on shelf, what's new to the market, all of those things are really invaluable, but it's definitely an awful lot easier now than it ever used to be. It's a big world, there's lots going on. I think I said recently that networking is key. Talking to people, asking questions, speaking to trade organisations like the Food and Drink Exporters Association or DBT, SDI. There's lots of companies out there who are willing to help and share. So, and people are invariably quite open to sharing their experiences. So the more that you can network and ask questions, there's no such thing as a silly question. You just ask it and take the bits of information and advice that you get to really focus on what's important to you and your brand and how that's going to fit into your strategy. But yeah, I think that would be networking is probably the biggest bit of advice that I would give to new companies or companies new to exporting. The future is certainly bright for Nairns, there's no doubt about it. We've had a tough last financial year. It was really, really difficult with the commodity increases we were seeing. That resulted in having to put through cost price increases, which is never easy, especially when you're already a slightly premium product and you're kind of nudging over that optimum price point in certain areas. But I think we're starting to see green shoots coming through this year. There's more interest from new markets, people looking at new brands, which is always useful for us. And where people were slightly reserved last year about bringing in NPD and new brands, then they're starting to look into that, which is great. So there's definitely an optimism. There are markets that we're very focused on entering, and that will come to fruition over certainly this year and into the next kind of 3 to 5 years. So yeah, the future's bright.